seen whether Hovde has a TDM program.
It's my understanding a lot of the TDM is through use. So we don't really tie it into we encourage it through our contract, but we don't require it, or we don't ask for their actual plan if they have one. We can definitely look into it. I think we'd have to see what's in the ordinance right now for it. And if we can actually require them showing us a plan, but we can definitely look into it.
Okay. I know that
Robbie, can I stop you and ask you a question about what you commented? Are you talking about requiring TDM for people who are leasing from the city?
No, that the business people being a business that is leasing from the city.
Correct. Okay. It's
business, but yes.
It's good timing because I believe we're going to be looking at the TDM ordinance coming up here. If you have ideas about that, send them over to Stephanie and Eric Finch. And Trent Schultz, is it Stephanie who's working on that?
Yes.
Or send them to Adam and he can get them on. Certainly send your ideas over, Robbie. And now's the time to be thinking about it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to point out this would not be part of the existing ordinance because that's for new buildings or ones that are changing use.
True.
But this is an opportunity for encouraging TDM. I just wanted to point out that previously, many years ago, don't remember when it was, but I remember that I was on the Ped Bike Motor Vehicle Commission that I was also on Transit and Parking, and we had a lease with a business that I don't even know if it's still in downtown anymore, but let's just say business, B. And they were required to have a TDM program. I don't think they ever did. And so I brought it up when the lease came up, and they acted slightly offended that I would actually ask them about it. But I know that in the past, we have required businesses having leases with the city to have some sort of a TDM program. Maybe it was because it was for a garage that was slightly more heavily used. But I think this is probably a future agenda item. I'm not going to belabor the point for this lease, but I would like to maybe discuss it as an overall city policy at a future date.
I'm making notes and I'll put it on the future list, future agenda item list.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And that's
other
bad actually. So.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Okay, we would need a motion to approve. Alder Govindarajan.
Yeah, sorry, quick. I was a couple minutes late and I might have missed roll call, so I just want to make sure that I'm counted in. Thank you.
Okay. Harold?
Move approval.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Darren?
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Robbie?
I'll just abstain.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, the motion is carried and we'll note Robbie as abstaining. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick check here. So Bill, we still looks like we have Alder Bennett who's not here, so you would still be voting. So just keeping track of that. Okay. Thanks, and also keeping track of our time. So we're moving on to item number 4 now. And this relates to approving the scoring system of the accessible taxi cab grant. Now, those who were on the former TC, we saw this twice last year when the original resolution came through. And the original resolution included a requirement that the TC look at and approve the scoring system. And so that's why it's back here at TC now. So, Keith?
Sure. You already covered my first line.
Oh, okay, great.
So in March 2023, it was approved. There's a little bit of a gap between the two because there's a little confusion about what agency would take the lead in this, and it ended up with me, which is fine. Yeah, so we're currently, there's only the ordinance required that only a licensed taxi cab company could receive this grant. And currently there are only two licensed companies in the city of Madison, that's Union Cab and Madison Taxi. And only one of those currently provides accessible service and has shown any interest in applying for the grant. And just for general, accessible taxi means on-demand transportation service to individuals who are not able to get out of the wheelchair into a vehicle. Any taxi should be able to take you if you're able to, get out of the chair into the back cab, and they can fold the chair up and put it in the back. That's not a problem. But this is just for people who are they're not able to get out of the chair. The grant application scoring system was developed with me, with assistance from MPO, with Ben Lyman, and Metro, Scott Korth. And these individuals will also be helping me to score the applications when we receive them. The application asks for some baseline information about the fleet in terms of accessibility and how the vehicle receiving this grant would impact the fleet. So if they were able to get this grant, how would it increase their accessible vehicles, with hopes that it would. More points were for companies that have experience with these type of vehicles and with that expertise of transporting people who are disabled. The scoring awarded more points to people if they're going to purchase newer vehicles or more suitable vehicles or safer vehicles for transporting accessible passengers. The scoring system awards more points for improvements in providing on 24/7 accessible service. Taxi cabs in general are required to provide 24/7 service to passengers. I just want to make sure that this privilege would extend to people who were in wheelchairs as well. And so we made them spell it out and how many rides are currently providing to accessible people late at night and all the different hours of the day. How much, if this would improve that, thought that'd be interesting to know. Sure. I'm currently working with the assistant city attorney Eric Finch on drafting the contract between the city and the awardee that includes all the resolutions requirements, including a provision that the city would put a lien on the vehicles purchased. So if the awardee was not able to provide accessible service, they went out of business for whatever reason, they weren't doing it anymore, the city would retain ownership of the vehicle. Also, the awardee would be required to provide annual report just to show that they are providing this service in the same manner that's spelled out in the resolution. So it's questions.
Questions you have for Keith? Denise, go ahead.
Keith, thanks so much for working on these. These are great criteria.
Oh, you got muted again, Denise, by mistake. You're
There
back.
we go. Thank you. And my screen reader was chattering at me, so I tried to shut it up, but it shut me up as well. So I really appreciate these criteria. I think they're really strong, and especially I like the one about experience in this work, getting increased points, and they're solid. They're really, really solid. I wondered about because disability etiquette and cultural sensitivity is a big part of the experience. Sometimes the vehicle might be accessible, but the person using it for transport feels like cargo. And other times, the drivers are just exquisitely wonderful. So is there a way to consider asking for if they have a training plan for disability cultural awareness.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, drivers in general are required to pass a sensitivity training, which may cover some of that stuff, but I'm not sure how specific that is. So I think that I would be receptive to that.
Great. Thank you so much for considering that.
So Denise, how did you phrase that? Adding training plan for disability cultural awareness?
Yeah, I like that better than disability etiquette, which is really just how to be polite. But there's really things in disability culture to pay attention to. So so adding do they have a plan for disability etiquette or disability cultural awareness training?
If they were to look for that kind of information, do you know, is there a particular source that would be helpful if they're not aware of that particular type of training?
Yeah, there's going to be some. I mean, I would, there's going to be some stuff if they do an internet search, especially, and also if they reach out to the Office, of Civil Rights, Rebecca Hoyt's office, that she would be an outstanding contact for resources, but also, reaching out to any of the disability serving organizations in town, or doing, a search for disability awareness training.
Yeah, I think in this case, Denise, probably Rebecca would be an excellent resource
She
because
would be.
Because she works for the city, Keith. So, and disability rights. Eric, did you have a comment?
I just didn't want to put more work on her plate because I know
Sure,
she's really
no,
busy, yeah.
No, I understand. Eric, did you have a comment on that?
I mean, I'd have to do some determinations to see, exactly.
Could you step up just a bit, Eric?
So I would have to do some determinations to figure out, exactly what's doable. But I think in the original resolution, which is 75053 on Legistar, there are details that they have to provide as far as drivers that will be trained to operate the accessible vehicle and to safely transport experiencing disabilities with dignity. So I think that is, probably something that we can ensure is in the contract and as transparent as possible.
Okay, great, Eric. Thank you.
Is that all you had then, Denise?
Yep, that's it from me. Thank you.
Sure, Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Following up on this, do we have the ability, if people have complaints about the instances that Denise has mentioned where things do not go well and they make those to the city, I'm not sure if we currently track those. And if we did, would we have an ability, like in addition to, all that we're asking, the application is provided by the company, but as an additional data source, say there is a pattern of like a company constantly getting complaints about not respecting the dignity of the people they transport. Would that be something that we have data on that we could consider adding to the scoring?
I don't know how much data we have on it. Currently, if this was like a particular individual driver, the drivers are licensed by the city. And if it comes to a strong enough point, perhaps, that person's license could be suspended or revoked. And if we determine that a company was systematically not providing, the accessible service, it might come to the point where we're saying you're not providing accessible services, and we're going to, take that vehicle back, because we will maintain a lien on the vehicle, but that would have to be an extraordinary, circumstance, I would imagine.
But they'd be under contract, so if they're in violation of the contract, Eric, we'd be able to take it back, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. The other question, and I think I know the answer to that, but I just want to confirm. So you said only currently licensed taxi companies who already are operating in Madison are eligible to apply. In other words, basically, it's going to be one applicant here, right?
It could be. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as it's here, let me see if I can, there we go. As it's written, it doesn't say anything about current. So if someone were to become a taxi company in Madison, they could apply for the grant. But I think Keith pointed out that the two that we would know exist and would expect, or maybe, not both, maybe only one would apply.
Right. And so in other words, none of the companies that currently provide transportation services for people with disabilities, but not as a taxi company, they will not be eligible, correct?
Yeah, I would not think so.
Okay, thank you.
Denise, I'm just looking through the resolution that Eric mentioned, and it says under the B, it further resolved, it says that their drivers will be trained to operate the accessible vehicle and to safely transport individuals experiencing disabilities with dignity. So it was very, very careful to put that kind of language in there.
Yeah, I really appreciate the with dignity, because that is critical. It's the differentiation between, treating people as human beings and versus cargo. So I feel good about that language, and I appreciate Harold's questions around a complaint process.
Yeah, but in order to get them trained to do that, I think it's a good question in the application to say, do they have plans for disability cultural awareness training? Because
exactly,
that really gets you to where you want to go.
Yeah, it doesn't leave it to chance that a driver will treat someone with dignity. So it's as part of their training.
Mm-hmm. Other comments or questions? I have a friend who's in a wheelchair, and my brother's in a wheelchair, and they both have comments about just exactly that point, Denise. So, Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I am absolutely pleased with this direction, because we have a lot of people who are in our congregation who don't have access to transportation. And so I like this movement. And I also like the part of the disability awareness. And so with disability awareness comes cultural awareness as well, because I've had some individuals complain that they did not feel that there was cultural awareness. And so in that language, it's flexible enough to include disability awareness training and cultural awareness as well. So my other question, and it is around Harold's process of a complaint. I mean, what is the system, or what's in place where there is an evaluation of the contract? And evaluation might not be the word, but how do we look back to see whether the awardee has actually performed in a way that would that person or that organization could continue receiving the grant? And I don't know how to word it, but that really popped up in my mind when Harold started asking questions about the process and data gathering and evaluation. And so I don't know how to frame that, but that's a question, because I'd like to come back at some point to ask the receivers of the grant, have they actually been compliant with the receiving of the grant?
So Alder, I might suggest, how does the city evaluate compliance with the contract? Because
that would work. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a good question, Keith. Is that something where TC should hear from you every year, how things are going? How are you going to know? I mean, I think the complaints are an important part of that, but that's a great point to put on the list.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is an expectation. It's actually spelled out right in the resolution that they'll be required to, complete like an annual report discussing their coverage, and we could certainly include some of the information, some of those items in that report, and we could share that report with Transportation Commission. That would be fine.
Okay, and Eric, Alder, did you have a follow-up with that before we go to Harold? No? Okay. Harold, go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly, I noticed looking at the application at the scoring rubric that sometimes there seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy where in the rubric, you're often more specific and talk about, okay, 150,000 miles or 7 years old gets you 1 point, or like some experience in 1 to 4 to 9 years gets you 2 points, where the questions are more framed in a narrative way. And I assume you would share the scoring rubric with applicants, but just making sure that what you're asking in the questions and then what people are being asked to rate in the rubric matches nicely, so that, there will be some fuzziness, of course, but yeah, making sure that if you want to know how long they've been and how long their experience is, then ask about how long and not describe it in a narrative way. So thanks. That's all I had.
Okay, I see the language in the resolution says that the award agreement will require the grantee to submit regular reports, including the number of rides of vehicles administered where at least one person in the party needed to use the accessible features. So maybe Keith and Eric, maybe you'll be wanting to have some sort of format for those reports so you can get at the information that you want.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's something I think we would, try to tailor it as best we can to, the full rights that the city has in the resolution to say, hey, you're required to do these things, in terms of an application for scoring, and we can say, if you want to, I don't know, we'll see what we're able to do. I don't know to the extent that we would specify some of those reports, but we can, I think that process naturally should be tailored to, the Transportation Commission. So we'll see what we can do there.
So the two major points I have at this point are that we would add a question. Do they have a plan for disability cultural awareness training? And two, can we incorporate in the regular reports they're required to submit how the city evaluates compliance, some factors related to how the city evaluates compliance with the contract? Am I hitting the two main points?
Yes.
Yeah, I think there. Oh, go ahead.
Just agreeing is all.
Okay, so those were the two. So did that hit everybody's points? Carl, does that hit yours as well as Alder Harrington McKinney? Okay. Okay, I'm seeing nods and thumbs up. Okay. All right, other comments? So we would need a motion. Do we want that motion to include those 2 points? I can read again what I have, and you can tell me if it meets with what you're thinking. What I have is that we add a question. Do they have a plan for disability cultural awareness training? And that we incorporate in the regular reports they're required to submit factors as to how the city will be evaluating compliance with the contract. Denise?
Yep, I would make that motion that it be approved with those two amendments.
Okay.
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Keith and Eric, are those worded okay for both of you?
Yeah, I think that what I got there, I was taking notes. I don't think I got it exactly. I was writing with a pen. I can't quite keep up, but it was I think that should be just fine. Really what it kind of comes down to some extent is the authority that we have, under the program, under the ordinance. And, I think Denise's comment is really astute in terms of the nexus between that training and real actual, cultural dignity. And I think the city can include contractual provisions on that. In terms of our ability to control what additional items to the report, that might be more limited, I would anticipate. But that's kind of how I would anticipate those two coming out.
Yeah, I think complaints was the main thing that I was hearing. I mean, that, we need to be able to evaluate, and, those points were important, that if there's a ton of complaints, somehow they have to be tracking those and letting people know. Alder Harrington McKinney?
I think that what we're doing is setting the standard, and so I like the conversation that we're having, because we are setting an expectation of the contractors, and so once we set the expectation, we expect compliance, and so adding that information in on the resolution, saying that we expect a quality of performance, and that will elevate them to that level. So I'm really comfortable with that. We're not mandating it, but what we're saying is that this is our expectation, and that expectation really raises the bar. So I'm really comfortable in adding that.
Other comments or questions? Okay, so there's a motion with those two additions. Further discussion? Anybody need me to read it again before we vote? I'll have to write it out neater and send it to you, Aiden, because my notes are a little random here, but I think I have it. Anybody wish it read again? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, so we're making a motion on the scoring system with the two additions. Do they have a plan for disability cultural awareness training? And that the factors for how the city evaluates compliance with the contract would be incorporated into the regular reports that they're required to submit. Any further discussion? Harl?
Yeah, sorry, one more question. So hypothetically,
You went a little quiet there, Harold.
oh, is this better?
Yes, it is. Thanks.
Okay. So is there a score cutoff that's independent of the number of applicants? I'm just wondering, like, if we have one applicant, are they basically guaranteed to get the funding, or is there, like, you have to score at least X points in order to be eligible?
We haven't got that sophisticated, I don't think. I would think as long as the applicant is, provides at the certain levels of information, and they have the experience, and they've shown they've had successful experience, and they have a fleet that's accessible, and they have staff that's trained, I would feel very comfortable with them, providing this grant to them.
Yeah, and on Madison's end, I think there would be additional steps to awarding, finalizing any grant, and so that would naturally cover some of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further discussion. Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands, the motion is carried. Thanks. Great discussion. Okay, item 5 we're going to come back to because that's the public hearing and it's scheduled at 6 o'clock. So we will move on to item 6, which is the Safe Streets Madison North Baldwin Street project, which is a carryover from the last meeting.
Yep. Hello again. Renee and I are back. Tom Moore, traffic engineering. So I'm going to share my screen here. So if you remember from last meeting, we wanted to look a little more into detail in the North Baldwin Street project, what we had proposed. And just a reminder, we were proposing bike lanes in certain sections, certain blocks of North Baldwin Street that corresponded to the uphill portions. So the top of the hill is pretty much lines up with the East Dayton Street intersection. So we're proposing southbound bike lanes on the block between Johnson and Dayton, and then northbound bike lanes on the block between Mifflin and Dayton. So some of that one block has residential permitted parking. The plan is to come back to the next meeting for the public hearing on that permitted parking removal. For today, we wanted to look more at the East Mifflin Street intersection. If you remember, we talked about different options there. There was a few residents who asked for an always stop. We thought that we could look into that a little bit more. My hesitation was just wanting to see what the traffic volumes are, to make sure we weren't missing anything. So we did that. We collected turning movement counts last week, and then we collected speed data and hourly 24-hour volume counts yesterday. So we got that data back, and I have it shown a little bit here on this map. I think the map that we posted didn't have these volumes, the notes here. Sorry about that. I meant to post that, but I guess I chose the wrong file. But it's pretty simple. Basically,
Tom, could you just read off the data so Denise can have that information?
Yep. So this is a map showing the peak 15-minute volume at the intersection for North Baldwin. In the northbound direction, we had 63 vehicles. In the southbound direction, 43 vehicles. On Mifflin Street, eastbound, there were 28 vehicles plus bikes and peds. And in the westbound direction, 12 vehicles plus bikes and peds. And so what we're looking at, we just want to make sure that at the highest traffic time of the day, are we going to have vehicles backing up on Baldwin Street? That was just the one thing that we wanted to make sure of. And the answer is no. I entered the data into some software and played around with it. Under these variables, we would need about double the volume on Baldwin Street of what we have right now for it to start backing up, for the queues to start growing. So basically the concern that we might see queues and traffic diverting or backups into other intersections, that's not going to happen. This is actually looking at the volumes almost exactly like North Patterson at East Mifflin Street. So if you wanted an example, actually there's more traffic on Mifflin at that intersection. So this is a little bit less volume than at Patterson and Mifflin, but it'd be pretty comparable to that. We also considered the option of, rather than an always stop, doing some sort of better refuge within the intersection for traffic on Mifflin Street to make that crossing for bikes and peds. But I think what we see here is that when people start this crossing, they like to make the whole crossing. They don't, even though the islands here are 8 feet wide, which are wide enough for a refuge, people just end traffic on Baldwin kind of treats it as one crossing. It's typically not used as a 2-stage crossing. Since the volumes are low enough, we think that the always stop is the way to go. I looked closer at the grades and the hill, and just added this a little portion of the northbound bike lane coming into the intersection, just to create some separation between the bikes and the vehicles, because this is this intersection is kind of within the hill a little bit. So it made sense that to add that little portion of bike lane there. But otherwise, that was pretty much the summary or the overview of what we were looking at. It was kind of what we suspected to see, but just wanted to confirm that. So that's really all I have.
The recommendation, Tom?
Our recommendation would be to install the bike lanes, install the always stop, convert the crosswalks to continental crosswalks from just the lines. I re-ranked the project with the always stop. It ranks a little bit higher because of the increased solution to the ped crossing problem. So it costs a little bit more, but I'm just for the signs, but it's pretty similar to what it was in the past. Overall, it's a pretty high ranking project within the program. I updated the spreadsheet, I included that, so this still ranks at number 7 out of the 42 projects we had proposed at last meeting.
Okay. Pepe, go ahead.
Thanks, Anne. Thank you, Tom, for the presentation. It's pretty clear, and first, I'm really thankful for just considering making this few modifications here. I think they will make an important impact in the long term. That's a very well visited corner for all people in different modes. So I think it's a great investment there. Now, the question I have is, now that we have the chance, right, to redesign and rethink this, can you touch base on what's the reasoning behind not including a bike lane marking on the other side?
Excuse me, Pepe, for just 1 second. Aiden has his hand up. Go ahead, Aiden.
Sorry, Pepe can finish, but we do have public comment, so I just wanted to see if...
Oh, geez, thank you for reminding me. Pepe, why don't you go ahead, and then Harold, do you mind if we get the public comments before you go? Okay, I should have asked you that first. Thanks for the reminder, Aiden. Finish up, Pepe. Go ahead. Yeah.
And I can also hold here, and if we can do the public comment first, and then I come back to this.
Would you like to hear from the public first, and then come back to you and Harold?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. All right, great. Go ahead, Aiden. Thanks.
So our first person is Jeff Franke of Curtis Court, Madison, Wisconsin. Neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Go ahead.
You might.
Chair, I don't see anyone in the queue with that name.
Okay. So the next person is Robert Kleba of East Gorham Street. Neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, Commissioners, and staff. I wanted to remind the Commission tonight that the last meeting, at the last Transportation Commission meeting, we had 25 public comments requesting additional traffic calming for the East Mifflin Bike Boulevard crossing with North Baldwin Street. And I am very happy to see that a four-way stop is recommended at this intersection. And Mr. Moore, if I could ask you to get the document that you showed the Commission on Legistar, I will then be able to share that with the neighborhood. And then furthermore, what we haven't discussed so far are the rest of North Baldwin Street, where we are proposing bike lanes. And I'm happy to see that traffic engineering are following the Complete Green Streets plan, where bikes are prioritized over motor vehicles. And I think that that's especially important on this street. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Who do we have next, Aiden?
Next, we have Andrew Leaf of North Baldwin Street, supports and wishes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Hi, I live at 111 North Baldwin, and I just want to register strong support for the four-way stop at Baldwin and Mifflin. I cycle year-round almost exclusively for transport, for getting around. Also have small children, so we use this intersection all the time. And as others have noted, it's dangerous, it's difficult. It's a major impediment to people using the Mifflin Street Bike Boulevard to get to and from downtown and the greater east side. So I'm very happy to see what's proposed. And I also think that it might help with, we see a lot of traffic speeding on North Baldwin, so there's a safety concern there along the whole street. And so I'm hoping that the stop sign will also check some of the speeding by just making it more difficult for cars to get up to speed. I also support the bike lanes. One of the parking spots that's supposed to be removed is in front of our house. And I just want to say that we don't need that parking spot there. We have no trouble finding a parking spot for our car when we need to on East Dayton Street. And we're confident that even with these spots being removed, we'll still be able to find parking for ourselves, when we need to move it for either guests or for people working on our house or whatever. So thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, seeing no hands, who do we have next, Aiden?
That was the last person wishing to speak, but we have two more registrants. Ryan Schmudlach of North Baldwin Street, supports, does not wish to speak. And Adam Wood of North Few Street, supports and does not wish to speak.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll go back to Pepe now, and then Harold.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, it's even more encouraging and more exciting to hear the public, express their approval, because I really feel the same way. I think it's a big win. And as I was listening and just looking at the plan, I kind of like self-answered my question, but I still would like to hear from Tom. I guess it's because of if we added the bike lane on the southbound side, we will have to get rid of those parking stalls, right? That area.
Sorry, I was gonna jump in on that question.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Renee.
Sure. So this actually came out of the public meeting where people said they didn't think that, and people generally felt overall, particularly more confident people, okay, riding on Baldwin, but particularly people with children, people pulling trailers, it's very slow going up the hill, right? And they felt like this would address kind of where they felt unsafe with the least amount of impact was if bike lane, there was a climbing bike lane for the hill section where people feel the most uncomfortable because it takes them a long time to get up to the top, and people get a little bit more impatient in that situation versus the downhill where they're able to carry a better speed. So everyone at our public meeting felt that was a pretty good improvement for this location.
Excellent. Thanks, Renee. Yeah, that's very clarifying. I was more imagining, having snow or rain, which is really windy, rainy city, and having to go downhill with cars next to you and not having that ownership of a lane. But I do understand that. I think is a good middle ground, and if people requested for the side where they're exposed the longest, then that makes a lot of sense. Just wanted to revisit that now that we're still in the discussion. I would personally, now that we have the chance, I would love to see a bike lane on both sides and in the area that is most inclined. But thank you. That's my whole comment.
Thanks, Pepe. Harold, go ahead.
Thanks. My question has resolved itself. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any other comments or questions? Okay, we'd be looking for a motion to approve the North Baldwin Street Safe Streets Madison project. Approval of the project would be subject to a public hearing and subsequent TC approval of removing the RP3 parking between East Johnson Street to East Dayton Street. Darren.
I make a motion to approve the Safe Streets Madison, East Baldwin Street, North Baldwin Street, plan.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Further, did you wish to speak to your motion, Darren?
No, thank you. Nothing else said.
Okay. Anybody, is there further discussion, comments? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. Okay, so the project as recommended by Tom and Renee is approved. Thanks so much. This was great. People asked for us to see it at the next meeting, and you were able to study and make the changes and come back to us in very short order. So thanks for that. Okay, we have 5 minutes till the public hearing. So I'm just going to start on item 7 with just a couple comments. And this is with regard to the update from the ad hoc tour subcommittee and discussion about scheduling individual tours. As noted at our August 23rd meeting, we had a discussion about TC practices of equity and inclusion. And TC has historically and currently a very strong commitment to practices of equity and inclusion and racial equity and social justice. And I do personally as well. So in response to some comments that the process of scheduling the tour could have been more equitable, I reflected on what could have been done differently. I went back and watched the recordings of the meetings and went back over my notes, etc. And I have just a few conclusions that I wanted to share. The first being that it's difficult to find a time for extra meetings with TC members. I've been tracking attendance at our meetings, and tonight we have. I'm very glad to see so many people here tonight. But between the June 21st meeting and the September 13th meeting, we had one meeting where we had all members able to attend, and the other meetings had either 3, 4, or 5 people who were not able to attend. So I just wanted people to realize that, and maybe I realize it because I'm tracking it all the time, that it is hard to get this group together even after hours. So that's something that I will remind people. It's something I know, but it's important to share that and remind people. So at the July 26th meeting, we were talking about the social gathering, and Chris McCahill suggested we combine it with the tour. As we were talking about timing, people thought 4 o'clock or later, and I didn't think about the fact that the tours I had been on at Metro had all been done during the day, and because there were no Metro items on the agenda, we didn't have anybody from Metro Transit there to remind us of the timing of it. So after that meeting, I spent a lot of time talking with staff, and at the August 9th meeting, I came back and explained that we needed to schedule it between 10 and 2 for safety reasons, and had a great discussion about there not being a lot of availability, but recognizing the safety concerns. Alder Bennett suggested we schedule a tour around the lunch hour, as that might be better. And Robbie suggested we schedule a separate social gathering because we wouldn't have a lot of time during the day. So all his feedback was taken into account. But because we had the discussion at TC, I didn't think about sharing that in the doodle poll. And again, something that I will remember going forward is not everybody's able to come to all the meetings. So if you weren't at that August 9th meeting, didn't hear that conversation, you didn't have that important information. So, sharing all that information, I think we had a lot of good information sharing, but not all the people got that information. So I think the main point that is a good one, and it was made in the training that we took, the transformative leadership training that we had back in 2022, was sharing of information helps us communicate better with other people and change any perceptions of inequity, or at least resolve them after the fact if there were some. So that was basically my thoughts that I wanted to share with you. And it just so happens that that introduction is going to put us right around that 6 o'clock timeframe. And we'll continue this conversation and have an opportunity to talk about it after we have the public hearing. So the public hearing regarding the approval of the Metro Transit Network redesign refinements will be held beginning here at 6 o'clock, which is in just a minute. The public hearing will only include staff presentation and public testimony. Speakers providing public testimony will be allowed 3 minutes. If the speaker requires an interpreter, either because of limited English proficiency or some sort of disability that where an interpreter would be helpful, they would be allowed 6 minutes. There'll be no discussion, deliberation, or vote by the Transportation Commission on this item at the public hearing today. Certainly, members of the commission or alders would be able to ask speakers questions and as usual, but no discussion or deliberation or vote. So we have arrived at 6 o'clock. So we'll have the staff presentation first. And so I'll open the public hearing. We'll have the staff presentation, and we'll hear from the public. And then we'll close the public hearing and adjourn the item to the next Transportation Commission. So, so who's going to give the presentation from Metro?
Hello, I'll give an opening, and then Sean is out today, but Bjorn, our scheduler, is going to do the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Mick.
Sure.
For everyone's benefit, I'm Bjorn Swenson. I'm the transit schedule planner for Madison Metro.
Bjorn, Mick, did you want to do some more intro, or are you good?
Yeah, I just have a couple more things. I'm sorry I didn't fully introduce Bjorn, so thank you for doing that, Bjorn.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick lead in. So Bjorn's going to sub in, give us a presentation. About 2 weeks ago, we did a public information meeting. We had an in-person meeting where we invited people to come in and just kind of learn about the changes that we're proposing and talking about tonight. And then we also did a virtual meeting right after that. And we had, I want to say we had about 30 people at the virtual meeting and about 10, 15 people that came to talk to us in person. So that went really well, and we got a lot of good information out. And we put a recording on our public information or our public hearing page so that people could watch that recording later on. And that being said, I just want to kind of sum up some of the feedback we've heard on the public hearing. And basically, it can be summed up to, we've been hearing that our buses, unfortunately, are behind schedule. Our buses, unfortunately, are crowded, and we're having trouble with our real-time data. I think, Bjorn, I think that sums it all up pretty much.
Very much so.
Yeah, so we'll be talking a little bit about that. And then, I mean, they're all related, and they're all related to the changes that we're proposing for December. So with that, I'm going to send it over to Bjorn.
Thanks, Mick. Go ahead, Bjorn.
All right, Mick, do you have the slides ready?
Yeah, I am getting it for you. Actually, Anne, can I share my screen?
Ariana, can Mick share his screen?
Yeah, you should be able to share it.
Okay.
Is it working?
It is.
Oh, okay.
How's that?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Can you make it full screen, Mick, or no? We're seeing 2 slides on there.
Okay, hang on. I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
Mick, it might be a display settings. If you go to from beginning.
Yeah. That's where I'm at?
Yes. Waiting for it to load. Try display settings in the top menu. It's the middle option. It might be one of those options to just show a single screen.
See up at the top, it says display settings.
Yeah. How's that?
No.
There, perfect.
All right. Thank you, Bjorn.
Yeah.
And all right.
All right. So a little background. I'm Bjorn Swenson. I'm the transit schedule planner for Madison Metro. I've been here since March. So I got here a little after a lot of the work was done, but was able to put the final touches on our network redesign. First time in 25 years, we've completely changed up our network. As you're all aware, let's go next slide. So ridership is up 4% year over year. We have seen a 1% drop from June 2023. We have expanded substantially the amount of coverage, mainly on the far east side of Madison, up in Sun Prairie, a little bit towards Fitchburg. We have more all-day service for that. Previously, we just served peak only, or in many cases, not at all. And we do know UW is back. We do know MMSD students are back. We don't have enough ridership data on how their term is doing so far. So we're on the 4th week. Usually you have to wait for a full month in order to collect ridership data. Next slide, please. So we are aware buses are running late. They are off schedule. In many cases, it's a whole laundry list of routes that have been performing below our expectations. However, Route B, Route C, and Route 28 are the most affected. But of course, many routes are ahead or behind. Our operations staff is very diligent at trying to get buses back on schedule. Some strategies do cause issues with real-time data. In many cases, you may see a road bus be inserted, or the bus that is scheduled be sent drop-off only, and a road bus inserted in front. That road bus is not able to be tracked into tracking apps you may use. So that can cause a little bit of an issue, but we are trying to run as close to schedule as we possibly can. We have, as anyone who's traveled around Madison knows, we got very substantial construction this summer. This is construction season. As that wraps up, hopefully buses will be able to get better to closer being on schedule. However, one highlight is that we are providing the service we have scheduled. Our schedules very much are a promise to our customers that we will show up at that time. We are missing very, very few trips. This is extremely rare nationwide. There's just national shortage of operators. Fewer and fewer people are choosing to apply as a bus operator in their municipality or where they are, but we are not missing trips. We are, however, experiencing an unexpected surge in peak ridership. We are not aware, we don't know all the schedules of all of the major employers, how many days they are mandating back to return to office. This is all in flux because of COVID. COVID in many ways has compressed a decade's worth of changes into perhaps a year. But we are learning that UW and many downtown employers, many educational institutions are coming back in person far stronger than we expected, which is leading to an unexpected surge in peak ridership relative to what our expectations were. Next slide, please. So, overloaded trips. We are well aware. I keep an Excel spreadsheet. I track every single one of those overloaded trips and keep a list of them. How that process works is operators call in to our radio dispatch service that their bus is overloaded. They need to go drop off only. Our radio dispatch records it in our internal software. And then from there, the planning team will do Excel work with it. So we are logging every single overloaded trip that is called in by an operator. We have been not just logging it, but taking action off of that. We've already added extra trips that are unscheduled to after our AM Dodger runs that conclude around 8 in the morning to routes A and C and 28. I will note that these are covered by operators working overtime. We are extremely thankful that our operators are stepping up and willing to work the overtime necessary to deliver the service that we have promised Madison. We will continue to pair extra trips with overloaded trips where feasible. Of course, we are limited by how many operators we have and how many buses we have available. I do note that as a scheduler, I looked back at what we were running in December 2019. We had 213 rostered positions. So of our total operator pool, about 75% of them have a roster position and the rest fall to the extra board. We had 213 roster positions in December 2019. No, 215 in December 2019. We have 213 today. And I expect in December, as I'll describe later, that we will be exceeding our December 2019 roster counts. So we are back to full service. Next slide, please. So for December, most of the changes involve changing timetables, not so much where the routes go. The main change to where the routes go is that Route R will connect, or the fancy transit planning terminology word is interline, to Route C after 7 p.m. weekdays and all-day weekends. This is mainly done so that we can get rid of the Sheboygan shuttle. We added that because we expected Sunday Route A buses would be overloaded. That bus has just been running from Park Street out to Sheboygan and Eau Claire and back on Sundays every 30 minutes. Extremely tight schedule. By extending the R instead, we can eliminate that and still provide the 4 buses an hour, bus every 15 minutes capacity we strongly need on West University. That also applies on evenings, and that also applies on weekends. So no matter what time of day it is, with the exceptions of the hours we're not running, there's a bus every 15 minutes on West University between the UW Hospital and Sheboygan and Eau Claire. Route 28, which is one of our weekday routes, will be extended to Sheboygan and Eau Claire. Follow the same routing as to Sheboygan as Route 38. We extended Route 38 in August pick, and that has been extremely well performing. So we're going to have a Route 28 continue out there. That allows us to add an extra bus, and that also allows us to add a little bit more layover time and make the Route 28 schedule something far more reliable than it has been currently. We do know Route 28 is a route that has been running completely behind schedule the most. We are also looking at adjusting schedules to better accommodate major shift changes, especially at UW Hospital, just that is such a huge source of ridership for us. Trying to get buses scheduled so that people are arriving about 10 to 15 minutes before their shift, and they have a bus leaving about 5, 7, 10, 15 minutes after their shift. So they're not waiting for hours, and we're providing as competitive of service as we can. Next slide. So this just shows you with a map of how the R and 28 will work. The R will, once it's heading east, go on Sheboygan, go up Seago on University. It will then take the exit ramp, make a left on Highland, and go to Highland Observatory. We'll then sit for like 3 minutes and change its head sign to become a Route C, and continue on Route C to the east side of Madison. From the east side of Madison, Route C, follow its normal route to Highland and Observatory. We'll face south on Highland, change its sign to a Route R after a short wait, then continue south on Highland, make a right onto the exit ramp, onto the entrance ramp, get on West University, service University, University Bay, follow University, Seago, and Sheboygan to where the route currently starts. That will happen evenings and weekends. On weekdays, as you may know, during the day, the route continues downtown on Campus Drive. And this also shows how the 28 will be extended out along the 38, similar path. Next slide, please. So this is what the corridor profile looks like. This is our off-peak service plan. Right now, the A is service on Sheboygan and on West University is only every 30 minutes. Next slide. With our proposed change, the combination of the A, R1 and R2 will mean there's a bus every 15 minutes on West University and on Sheboygan. And I'm specifically working to make sure those schedules are offset as much as I can, as best I can, so that we're not delivering 2 buses every 30 minutes. We're delivering a bus about every 15 minutes. So that, once again, that means that from about 6 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, 7 days a week, there's a bus. You're waiting no more than every 15 minutes at West University. Next slide. Additionally, we're also looking at as many of the other routes as we possibly can. The key priorities right now are routes B and C. Both of these routes need an additional bus. When we did the schedule estimation, and when I came in here in March, we're estimating schedules based off of average driving or average speed, which in transit is usually about 14 to 15 miles per hour. That is what we use as our base schedule speed and built the schedules off of that. However, we're finding Route B and C are running a little bit slower than our estimates were. So we are adding additional resources. We are finding that operators are running behind. They're not having time to get up and use the restroom. That is, of course, an operator health concern. So we are adding additional resources to routes B and C to ensure that our operators have the chance to use the restroom, have a realistic schedule that they can reliably provide, and our customers have a realistically scheduled they can depend on. As we mentioned, Route R will be extended to the UW Hospital, off-peak and weekends. Route F will be timed to meet Route R after 7 p.m. So that means you can take Route R and connect to Route F. I know that I've seen many customer comments. Unfortunately, Route A has not been able to make Route F. I tried adding a little bit more time in August, still wasn't able to make Route F reliably. So I'm hoping if I can have passengers count on taking Route R to take Route F, they'll be far more likely to be able to make that connection. On Route 75, we will be adding we are looking as soon as we have the workforce availability, we want to add short-term trips between Maple Grove and McKee out to Epic and back. We can do that loop in about 30 minutes. For now, we plan on covering that with extra work. Once again, we need to make sure we have the operators in order to deliver that schedule so that when people expect the schedule, that bus will show up because it has an operator for it. In the long term, we might look at trying how we can get it out to the B-line terminal out in Fitchburg at Caddis and Cahill. Additionally, depending on operator availability, we are looking at additional short turns, as much service as we can throw on Jennifer and on the Johnson-Gorham corridors, as we still have many people that we are passing up. We need to throw more buses at it. Next slide.
I don't think the slide moved.
Oh, here it is. Are
Okay.
you seeing? So this is a map of the Verona area. There is a Route 75. that
Yeah,
starts-
we're not seeing that.
Okay.
I see it.
I can
I'm
see it
still
too.
seeing.
I see it too.
Okay.
So this is a map of Verona. On the far southwest side is Epic. On the northeast side, it cuts off at about Williamsburg Way. Is this what we're all seeing?
Now I am. Thank you.
I see nods.
I
I
must
see
be on a
yeses.
time. I must be on a delay.
All right. So this is what the 75C or 75 short will look like. Unfortunately, it is very faint, but it is still kind of visible, the red arrows. But from Epic up Northern Lights, out on McKee, be running closed door, not servicing any stops. It probably wouldn't even be added to the map because it just goes straight to nonstop to Maple Grove and McKee, and then follow the 75 west, the westbound direction, down Maple Grove, down Verona Avenue, right by Verona High School into Epic. We'll be able to run about 4 trips in the morning, 4 trips in the PM. The reason we're looking at doing the short cycle trip is to take advantage of the excess spare capacity on westbound Route C or westbound Route D2, as well as westbound Route E. Those buses will have a lot of seats, be able to take people out to Maple Grove McKee, where they will be able to catch a 75 short cycle. And because it's short, it will show up at Maple Grove McKee more or less empty, and have plenty of seats for customers to be able to make. One thing with route planning is that the shorter the route is, the more trips we're able to provide with that one bus. By doing a very short route, we can provide 4 trips. Another alternative we looked at was to have a bus go from down the square. That would have only allowed us 1 trip during each peak. So this does provide as many seats as we possibly can going out to Epic. Yes, next slide. Additionally, we are also going to be adjusting the running times. That's how long it takes, how long we schedule each bus to take between our time points. And time points are where our buses are able to stop and sit if they're running slightly ahead, or places for customers to know where major stops that they can catch the bus at. We will be making runtime adjustments to many routes. Primarily it's Route A, B, C, which are the routes that have been our mainline routes that have been running behind schedule. This is 7 days a week. Also adjusting routes G, H. So when I built the schedules, I built A and B first because those are our most important routes in our network. Those are the routes that almost everything else feeds into. So once I got A and B locked down, I then have to look at how the connecting routes feed into it. And routes G, H, P feeding into it have to have their trips slid a few minutes and their schedules adjusted in order to best meet route A and B, so you can make connections and get where you're going without much wait. Additionally, routes J and O will be seeing some minor adjustments in order to better meet UW hospital shift start and end times. Once again, on Route J, on the weekends in particular, I'm trying to get it by the hospital at about 45 after the hour. That works out perfect for people that have to start work at the top of the hour. It also allows people getting off at 30 after at the bottom of the hour in order to catch their bus. Now it goes both directions. J and O are paired together. So once you get to near Park and University, Route J becomes Route O. Route O becomes Route J. So it does provide, in many ways, a 1-seat ride from the south of Madison to the UW hospital. Next slide. And that wraps up our presentation. Thank you so much.
If I could add one thing, Ann, could I add one thing?
Go ahead. You bet.
Just to add on Bjorn's comments about drivers, is it's just good to we have relief in sight. We're doing continuous recruiting. It takes about 3 months to train a driver. So even though we've got them on payroll, we still got to train them and get them going. So we just want to not create too much false that we're going to be able to fix this overnight. But we are like Bjorn said, we are hiring like crazy, and things are going in a real positive direction. But it's going to take a little while to get everybody on board.
Okay, thanks, Mick.
Yep.
Okay, so just a reminder that speakers providing public testimony will be allowed 3 minutes. If a speaker requires an interpreter, they will be allowed 6 minutes. So Aiden, who do we have in the queue for the public hearing?
So first we have Mitch Dewar of East Washington Avenue, supports and wishes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Mitch.
Very
faintly.
Well, as you said, I support this new expansion of the 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. routes in the Verona area. But I'd like to, just kind of suggest, I know this isn't a debate, but suggest potentially either reinstating the limited stop zone service that the 75 had prior to the June 11th redesign, or perhaps implementing some sort of quote unquote express bus that would start at the Capitol, continue along the current route until the Fitch Hatchery intersection with the Beltline, and then perhaps going on the Beltline to Epic, since the vast majority of riders do get on the 75 between that section of Fish Hatchery and the Capitol, whereas the rest of the route is already serviced by a few other routes and sees some lower ridership in comparison to the more downtown section. Yeah, that's basically the extent of my comments.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commission members or alders have a question for the registrant? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Who do we have next, Aiden?
So next we have Graham Mason of Fitch-Rona Road Apartment, Fitchburg, Wisconsin, supports and wishes to speak. I think they might not be in the list, so I can go to the next person.
Are they there, Ariana?
Aiden is correct. They are not.
So next we have Steve Arnold of Taghee Street, Fitchburg, supports and wishes to speak.
I am also not seeing Steve Arnold in the queue.
Then we have Laura Bickle of Temkin Avenue, opposes and wishes to speak. I don't believe
Do
I
we
see.
see Laura?
Nope, there is also nobody in the queue by that name.
Well, we're at 6:22, so.
And then next we have Rita Bick of West Lake Lawn Place, supports and wishes to speak.
Go ahead, Rita.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so my topic would be safety, and that would include having the drivers be prepared for different crises. And it would also, because I've been seeing different behaviors on the buses, that I will start recording in feedback forms. Also, the biggest thing is preparing for the cold. As you noted, that there's a lot of late buses, and I've had to wait from 30 minutes to an hour, and was even skipped yesterday while waiting, or 2 days ago, on the A line. I would I'd like to support those who are taking the bus to Oakwood Village on Tancho Drive and American Family Insurance. We are having to walk 15 to 20 minutes to our work, and it affects our lateness. So when again with the safety, with the winter coming, having to wait outside with no heat or light will be a safety issue. So if there's a way to make the bus stop away from American Parkway and East Park and closer to American Family Insurance and Oakwood Village, that would be awesome. Especially since there's already a bus stop in place in front of American Family Insurance. Really appreciate that.
Okay. Do any commission members or alders have a question for the registrant? Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Oh, yes. The registrant said something about behaviors. And so would you expand on by behavior?
Okay, yes. So there's been a couple times where I've been on the bus where there are customers blurting out things that without impulsively, like words that are really mean, not directly at someone, just yelling them out constantly. There was also at least 2 incidents where there's a person drinking on the bus, and one where I had to get off the bus because they had to bring in the fire department to get some woman help. So it just seemed like with the different, this was only the last month. So I've been taking the bus in the last month, and I just keep seeing things where there's like unhealthy an environment of people coming on. So I felt like the drivers, they've also started getting stressed seeming versus when the routes changed, that they would need to be prepared for the stressful environment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Anybody else have a question? Any alders or TC members?
Yes, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Pepe.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if there is any, how can I phrase this? Like if when you record something, if you're meaning to report that, like what would be a comfortable way to report that? How would you like to make your voice heard?
Are we? Rita, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Because I am understanding that there's these feedback forms. So when I started riding the bus about a month ago, I didn't know about that form, and I've already spoken with someone over the phone. But so now the latest thing that happened to me was that I waited for the bus, and the bus skipped me, and I had to wait for an hour in the rain this Monday. So I wrote that up in a feedback form. The previous incidents I didn't write up. I just called and talked to someone one day. So I can put those in the feedback forms when I see it again, so it's more specific.
Oh, well, Megan Bjorn, if she called and talked to somebody, that would get into your system as well, would it not?
Yes, we record it that way too. Yes.
Good. So Rita, got into the system, even if you just call and talk to somebody.
Okay. So again, the biggest thing though for the winter would be if there's a way to move the bus stop American Parkway East Park on the A line to go farther, closer to Oakwood Village on Tancho Drive.
Thank you very much. I'm seeing Bjorn take notes. So all of the feedback is being recorded and will be considered.
Thank you.
Yes, other questions or from alders or TC members for Rita? Okay, thanks very much for coming, Rita.
You're welcome.
Aiden, who do we have next?
So that was the last person wishing to speak, but I can read off the rest.
Sure.
So we have Bennett Davishoff of Wicklow Road, Deerfield, Illinois. Neither supports nor opposes and is available for questions. And we have Celia Hiorns of State Street. Neither supports nor opposes, does not wish to speak. We have Kyla Smith of South Charter Street. Neither support nor opposes, does not wish to speak. Madison Fowle of East Gorham Street. Neither supports nor opposes, does not wish to speak. Sharon Knopf of Columbus Lane. Neither supports nor opposes and does not wish to speak.
Okay, thanks, Aiden. So we got a lot of our feedback in different ways this time, Mick, through the reports that you prepared. And so we do have a lot of additional feedback that we did obtain. There's somebody whose hand is up in there. Okay. Did anybody come in that we missed earlier? Bill, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. I have a question as far as
we're not doing
for the question. No, as far as what's included in this public hearing tonight.
Okay. So the public hearing is just the staff presentation.
No, that's not the question, Ann. The question is the content. Are the bus stops changes? Is that part of the hearing tonight?
No, we did that last time. Those are taken care of. So it's just the change,
right.
Just the changes that Bjorn described is what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was misunderstanding your question. So did any of the speakers that we called on earlier but weren't in the queue, did they happen to pop back into the queue?
I have not seen anybody that we missed that later popped back in.
Okay, Bill, your hand is up again. Did you have something else? No? Okay. You want me to? Okay, all right. Okay, so we would close the public hearing. I will now close the public hearing, and we would need a motion to adjourn this item to the next Transportation Commission for discussion, deliberation, and vote. Harold?
Move adjournment to the next meeting.
Okay, there's a motion. Alder Martinez Rutherford. Is that a second? Yes, okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, that motion is carried. All right. And we'll have an opportunity to discuss all that at the next meeting. So now we'll go to item 7. And I just want to wrap up what I started by saying that I'm going to be sure and repeat key information to everybody at opportunities. So, Pepe, you had suggested that that information could have been conveyed in the doodle poll, and that was a great suggestion. And I'll use it as a general enhancement. So as we're communicating things, I'll make sure that the key points get out to everybody. So some of you may hear it a second time, but that's okay. It can be a reminder. We get a lot of information in these meetings. And that was one of my takeaways. So now we'll hear a report from the members of the ad hoc tour subcommittee. My understanding that Bill and Harold and Robbie were there. I believe Alder Martinez Rutherford was there. Sadly, I have COVID issues. And so to protect everybody else, I'm in that stage where I'm not sure if I have COVID, but I was exposed for a significant period of time, which I learned after the fact. So I chose to stay home, which was very sad. So Bill, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks to Robbie and Harold for nominating me as to be the chair of the subcommittee. And I'm sure exactly how that happened, but that's fine. It was a very, very well-conducted tour that Justin stayed with us for the whole tour and actually led the tour for the majority of the discussions as we moved through the facility. Thanks to Bjorn and Mitch and Tim for also escorting us through the building. I had the opportunity of taking a tour when we started Transportation Commission. I think it was about 5 years ago, and I think I was pleasantly pleased with all of the changes that the Metro has been able to do, accomplish with that building, of making all of the improvements that, both from a safety standpoint, efficiency standpoint, the new wash bay addition on the south end of the building was excellent. How the workflow of the buses in and out and storage facility works is an excellent example of how the dedication of the staff, I think, and how they accomplish their jobs out there and making it efficiently. And it's excellent. It was an excellent tour. The changes, and I think that's one of the other things, because there's been I think they've had a project every year, or a project is going on almost continuously since we were last there, to how they operate, keeping the facility running, if you will. And it's practically, there's people in the building, even though the buses aren't on the street, there's people in the facility 24 hours a day, either through maintenance or cleaning buses and so forth. So I think that was, they explained the flow of the driver bringing the bus in, gets parked, they're told where to park it, and then another crew comes in second shift and takes the buses and does all the refueling and cleaning and taking the money out of and putting it into the vault and so forth. How that operation works, they demonstrated to that. So, but it's a excellent. It's a very old building, but on the other hand, it's a well-maintained building as far as serves the needs of the city very, very well. So they answered all of our questions and demonstrated the capability. I think the scheduling is, and the operations staff, keeping track of anything that goes on out on the street, that by radio and telemetry, they're able to track the buses and so forth. And so it's doing very, very well. Justin gave us a little bit of a idea of what's going on as far as the Hanson Road project, because that was just let here this month, I guess, right? Harold, was that Public Works have put it out for bids as far as the work for Hanson Road to maybe that was before, but
yeah, I don't remember it being on the agenda.
Yeah.
Maybe last month it was, Bill?
I don't know, but Justin said that the work is just now getting going underway to modify the Hanson Road, so that we need that facility. The facility in East Washington is at its maximum capacity, and so the Hanson Road is going to be while we were doing the tour, there was one electric bus in the building that was there, that was in charge mode as we walked by it. So that was it was a great hour and a half, well spent, and I think it's well worth for all of us that were able to attend. So when Hanson Road gets done, I think we'd like to see that too. But so that's all I have on the others, if they have any additions or thoughts.
Sure. Harold, Robbie, Alder Martinez Rutherford, anybody else who was on the tour that I might have missed? Other comments? Eric, go ahead.
I just want to note, as with regard to the Hanson Road facility, that's out for bid right now, and bids are due October 26th.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, other comments about the tour? Okay, thanks, Bill. Alder Martinez Rutherford, did you have some comments?
No, thank you. I did that on accident really quickly.
You know, hands keep popping up and down tonight. I'm not sure. Ariana, could you give me the power to lower hands so that I can help with that?
Yes.
I would appreciate. Thank you. So we know not everybody was able to go for lots of different reasons. And Mick, you have offered to make individual tours. Now we understand about the safety issues and that group tours can only happen, start at 10 or later, be done by 2. So Mick, do you want to talk about, scheduling individual tours is something that you offered. How would people go about that?
People can just send me an email at mrush@cityofmadison.com, or just give us a call at 266-4904 and ask for me, and I'd be glad to set it up. Very simple.
Okay. And we could, if people wanted another group tour, we would form another ad hoc subcommittee the way Eric designed it last time and do that. We talked about having tours of, at some point, of parking of the traffic engineering facility. Timing is more flexible for those tours. So I believe those could be done at the end of the day instead of during the middle of the day. So I think we'll do the social gathering first and then see what appetite people have for doing more tours. And then Mick, maybe when the Hanson Road facility is done, we could arrange a tour there.
Glad to do it.
Okay. Eric, go ahead.
Just wanted to mention as well, if folks want to take, any commission members want to take a member or take a tour of Metro, you could also take a tour in pairs. We just can't have 3 members together or it becomes a negative quorum, but you could actually pair up for like an evening tour of Metro, and that would allow you to be able to have the access to see the facility, how it's in operation. It actually in some ways would be a more exciting time to watch, but yeah, only an individual or pair tour would make sense logistically, and then in compliance with the open meetings law.
And pairs are okay with you, Mick? Just double checking.
Yes, that's fine. We'll be able to manage that. No problem.
Okay. So if you're interested, just get in touch with Mick and we can work something out. Not as efficient, but our schedules are all so busy and so crazy. That might be the best way to go if people are interested in having that tour. I've been to Metro twice. I was looking forward to my 3rd tour, and maybe I can work, set up an individual time once I'm cleared again. Other comments about the tour or about scheduling individual tours? Okay. Thanks, everybody. All right, so our social gathering. Now, I put together a memo, which you should have seen and was in Legistar. We identified 5:30 as the best time. So we're assuming that anything that we schedule would be at 5:30. Members have very busy schedules. And if you look in Legistar, you can tell what city boards, committees, and commissions people are a member of. So I looked everybody up in Legistar and found those BCCs. And then I looked up when they all meet. And, Harold, you know how I like to do charts and things. So I started being real fancy with it. And then I discovered that there's this very cool city calendar out in Legistar, which has all of the BCCs on one gigantic calendar. So I put all of this together, worked it through, and this will tell you how busy everybody is. Looking at Monday through Thursday in the months of October, November, and December, there are 6 days. 6 days. October 22nd. No, I'm sorry. October 24th, October 31st, if anybody's willing to do it on Halloween, November 20th, November 28th, November 30th, and December 19th. That's it. All the rest of the dates had Plan Commission, Board of Public Works. I have the whole list of all of the committees and commissions that everybody is on, including the alders, and that's it. So those 6 dates. So we can certainly do a doodle poll, but I just wanted to get your feedback. Is there any date on there that we can cross off and people say, no, let's not meet on Halloween? Is there thoughts about any of those dates that we shouldn't have on the doodle poll? Again, October 24th and 31st, November 20th, 28th, and 30th, and December 19th. Robbie?
I will likely not be in town for a in-person meeting on October 24th.
Okay.
Future dates are slightly up in the air, but.
Okay. Alder Martinez Rutherford.
Yeah, I would be more amenable to everything in November just because I want to get through budget season kind of alive.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, we have 3 potential dates in November. So that's good.
Anything in November and December would work perfectly.
Okay. Chris, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest we don't try and do this one by one because I've got a bunch of conflicts too.
You do? Okay. So why don't we just put them all on a doodle poll and see what happens? Denise?
And could you work with staff to find a different scheduling tool? Doodle is terribly inaccessible, both from a magnification and a screen reader. I have to usually have somebody else do the doodle poll for me.
Yeah, you had mentioned that, Denise, and Aiden and I tried to figure out that Google thing that you referenced, and we're not very successful. Could we send you an email? It's just 6 dates.
Yep, if you're okay with that, and then either inputting or just having my data alongside, I'm totally good with that.
Aiden, can we just do that and send Denise a separate email, and then she can just, it's only 6 days, so.
Right.
And they're all at 5:30, so either I can or Aiden can send you an email and we'll just add you in. How does that sound?
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, sure. I don't think I'm as technologically advanced as you, Denise. So I was not successful in figuring out that tool that you suggested we use. So the next point is location. So we want to invite city staff to join us. City staff is located downtown. So our suggestion is to have it downtown. The Great Dane, where I've had a couple of TC get-togethers over the years, a Transit and Parking Commission get-together, and I think a TC get-together at the Great Dane Pub and Brewing Company at 123 East Doty. Very popular spot for folks downtown to meet, and they have places within the Great Dane where you can gather, where you can actually talk to each other, and have an area where you can get together. Another suggestion was the Post, which is in the new Park Hotel, right on the Capitol Square. So again, it has to be a place that has room for us to gather, because it would be, if all TC shows up and then we have staff, we're talking, 20, 30 people potentially at the high end of things. So 20 plus for sure. So everybody okay with anybody opposed to meeting downtown? I mean, we're not in the summer season anymore, so the Memorial Union Terrace sadly is out, and the Monona Terrace rooftop sadly is out. But any objection to downtown? Harl?
No objection, just a note, since we have Halloween on the calendar as a potential date, that might complicate things downtown.
Oh, that's true.
But we can wait until we have the date figured out.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I don't know if that spills over to where the Great Dane is because it's not State Street, but it might. But that's an excellent point. Well, we'll see what we hear back from people. So it's our inclination to be downtown, and we'll figure that out. So Aiden will put a doodle poll together. As you can see, it's really hard to schedule with this busy group of people. But I'm very excited about the possibility of getting us together. And sadly, probably not every single person will be able to come. But that doesn't mean we can't do it again, and get together in person at some other time as well. So any other comments on the social gathering? I now have physical evidence of just how busy you all are, and that's not even knowing what your personal calendars or your business calendars look like. So definitely busy. Okay, well, Aiden and I will keep working on it, and we will keep moving forward. Okay, so next we have item 9, which is a proposed 2024 Transportation Commission meeting dates. Tom Lynch put together this pretty cool chart, which he used to use a similar type tool for the Transportation Policy and Planning Board. He has the Board of Public Works, Finance, Transportation Commission, Plan Commission, Disability Rights Common Council, and the Greater Madison MPO, all on a spreadsheet. So very, very nice tool to sort of look and see. So prime objective was to try and minimize the conflicts with Board of Public Works. In 2023, there were 9 dates where TC and BPW overlapped. So in this proposed schedule, there are only 3 dates. And this is version 4. So there's a few versions before where there were more, and then we moved some stuff around. And so now it's down to 3. There's also one possible overlap that's September 4. Those dates are June 26th, October 30th, and November 30th, where the overlap with Board of Public Works. There's also one possible overlap with the anticipated MPO scheduled meetings, and that's on September 4th. So we could reduce the conflicts with the Board of Public Works in November, but if we move the November meeting to November 27th, I objected to that because that's the day before Thanksgiving, and we have always avoided that date. We are suggesting in the past, we've had just one meeting scheduled in December. This schedule has only one meeting in April, one meeting in August, and one meeting in November. And some of that relates to conflicts with Board of Public Works. Some relates to some holidays. We have budget, which Alder Martinez Rutherford was talking about. There are budget dates that we can't meet on. So we're always trying to be more efficient in what we do. So we're committed to trying to figure that out. Now in 2023, old TC and new recreated TC, we haven't canceled any meetings in 2023. In 2022, we did have a meeting in August cancel. We did have a meeting in April cancel. And we had a meeting in January cancel. So, August, there's only one council meeting. April, there's only one council meeting. So all of this was balanced and taken into account in what's brought forward. Now, what Tom used to do with the Transportation Policy and Planning Board is bring the schedule to one meeting to discuss, and then bring it back to the next meeting to request approval. If you like how it's presented and think we should just go for it, we certainly can have a motion and approve the proposed schedule as is. If you have feedback, offer that to us, and we can come back with a slightly modified one at the next meeting. So comments or questions? We have somebody who's an attendee who's got a hand up, and I don't know quite what that's about. Did we miss having a registrant speak on something, Aiden?
They had registered as available for questions.
Okay. Denise, go ahead.
This is really helpful. So thank you to Tom for working on this. Curious just to make sure that the dates have been cross-checked to make sure they don't conflict with any of the Jewish holidays or any other, holidays that would be observed.
Yes, Aiden, you have a list. Don't you get a list of those dates that we have to, like elections and budget and holidays?
Correct. Yep.
So Denise, I think they're provided, all of the clerks for the various meetings are provided with a list. So they know when those holidays fall and what they need to avoid.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Other comments or questions or suggestions? So how do you feel about the proposed schedule? Harold?
I would make a motion to approve the schedule.
Okay, Darren?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the schedule as proposed. Comments, discussion? Harold, did you wish to speak to your motion at all? No? Yeah.
Just thanks for the work for making that happen and reducing the number of conflicts. So that worked out.
Yeah, Aiden, be sure and carry those thanks back to Tom, because I know he spent a lot of time on it. Like I said, this is version 4. So, he had to gather a lot of data and worked really hard at trying to minimize it. And it impacts mostly you, Harold, because you're on the Board of Public Works. So, yeah, and we appreciate that you're serving on both so that we can have that connection. Further discussion. Excuse me. Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. I think I could say that in my sleep. Okay, motion is carried. And Aiden, so you'll get a schedule. You can convert that to a final approved schedule. And if you want to do your separate one for TC, that would be fine too. And we can take it off the agenda for the next meeting. Okay, thanks everybody. So next we have item 10, which is our crossover report from all of the folks who are on all of the various other boards, committees, and commissions that are transportation related. So anybody have anything to update us on tonight? Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, just very briefly, on the last DPW meeting, we approved the final design for the Seago Sheboygan project that was here with the protected bike lanes on Seago and the buffered bike lanes on Sheboygan. So that was all approved. And then, yeah, I think that was the main thing that we had seen at DC before.
Good, thanks. Anybody else have any updates? Either from Plan Commission or Downtown Coordinating, Joint Campus Area Committee, Sustainable Madison, MPO. I mean, we have Plan Commission, we have folks on a lot of different things. Nikki's on disability rights. So anything else? Okay. Thanks. In terms of announcements, I sent an email out to all of you about the resolution that just passed the Common Council. The mayor and all of the Common Council members voted, or actually supported this resolution and sponsored this resolution, proclaiming October 15th 2023 to be White Cane Safety Day in the city of Madison, and acknowledging the importance of pedestrian safety year round, which is what we spend a lot of our time on here at the Transportation Commission. And I also forwarded an email. I'm on the mailing list for the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired, which has some good resources as well. And as we move toward October, I'm sure there's going to be more information available about Pedestrian Safety Month and White Cane Safety Day as well. Denise accepted the proclamation at the City Council meeting on the 19th and had some great words to share. So I just wanted to ask Denise if she had anything to add to this announcement. Putting her on the spot. Sorry, Denise.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. The council meeting's recorded, so the mayor reading and me commenting are there. But it was an opportunity for me to thank the council for the benefit of having policy in place. And I could use a concrete example of before we had Vision Zero and Safe Streets policies in place, a 2-year process to get an audible flashing beacon at the corner of Willie and Livingston. It's like jumping through hoops of fire to make that thing happen, compared to now, where a resident was trying to cross at Cottage Grove and Monona Drive and was experiencing issues, called the city engineering, analyzed it, and made a light change that same afternoon that allowed the resident to get started in the pedestrian crossfield and then before the cars started turning. So just that difference, because we actually have policy in place that allows staff to make these real-time decisions. It was just phenomenal. And then I coupled that with a budget ask, invited alders to look at the Vision Zero spreadsheet if they haven't, to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So my agency will continue to message on this. We request municipalities around the state to do White Cane Safety Day proclamations. And for those not familiar, White Cane law requires that a motorist stop within 10 feet of a pedestrian using a white cane and or service animal. But it's only, White Cane safety is only one part of the much bigger pedestrian environment that we're promoting. So working with the governor's office and municipalities around the state, and getting opportunities to address other communities and really inviting them to step into the Vision Zero environment to put policy in place in their communities as well. And we'll do some more publications, one that's coming out soon. I can't remember exactly when, but we have a pedestrian safety and White Cane Safety Day quiz for folks to, interact with and then get some factoid pieces of information. So, and spending time with the Federal Highway Transportation Administration and WSDOT, looking at addressing them on what are the pedestrian features that are game changers for people with disabilities. I'll be doing that on the 16th. So just kind of a snapshot of the work that we're doing statewide on these issues.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Denise. We're very lucky to have you on the Transportation Commission. Much appreciated. So that was all I had in terms of announcements. In terms of future agenda items, so approval of the 2024 dates, we can take that off for next time. The Broome John Nolan Drive intersection will likely come to us as a council referral. We should have the public hearing to remove the RP3 parking on North Baldwin Street at the next TC meeting. We will have the approval of the Metro Transit Network redesign refinements that we talked about at the public hearing tonight. That will be on the next meeting. Potentially Amtrak alternatives. 2024 list of projects from Chris Pedakowski that we'll see next year. Bikeways 2024, potentially from Chris. And another agenda item, we have several that are coming. We've pushed some down to later because we've had a lot on our agendas. But one that is of great interest to people is an update on Metro Transit accessibility and paratransit. Alder Martinez Rutherford, Tom Lynch indicated that you were interested in that. We the 25th, but Denise is going to be gone, so it'd be nice to schedule it either earlier or one meeting later, just so she can be here since she's been so involved in that. Would November 8th, is it okay with you, Alder, if we wait that long to have that presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That'd be great, because Denise is a valuable resource for that conversation, I think. And then, we already have quite a number of things on the agenda for October 25th and on November 8th. And Robbie, I set aside your comment about TDM, so I'll add that. I have a separate list of things to add in when we get through this sort of rush period of the new recreated TC, so I'll add it to that list. Robbie?
Yeah, it wasn't just necessarily about TDM, because I know that we're going to get an update on the TDM zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
It's specifically about our contracts for parking, for our parking ramps.
Okay. I'll make it that specific. All right. Anybody have any other future agenda items? We've had, one or two each time, and I've added those to the list and I'm keeping track of them. Anybody have anything else to add? Okay. We are at 2 hours. That is a much more reasonable time for a meeting. So I need a motion to adjourn. Darren.
I move we adjourn.
Oh, Alder Martinez Rutherford. That's a second, huh? Okay. And
Yes.
all right. Thank you. I assume a unanimous consent vote, and thanks everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.